Hi, welcome to My Favorite Mistake. I'm your host, Mark Graban. Our guest today is Jason Sherman. He's many labels for Jason. He's an entrepreneur, filmmaker, author, and tech innovator whose career spans startups, media, and education. He's the CEO and co founder of Spinner, which is a video based friendship app designed to address the loneliness epidemic. And he also leads Vengo AI, a platform that pushes the boundaries of how consumers interact with technology. He's been featured in outlets like the Wall Street Journal and USA Today. His lectures at universities, mentors founders, and he's the author of an entrepreneurship book from about 10 years ago, Strap On Your Boots. His work blends practical startup experiences, a journalist's curiosity, and a filmmaker's storytelling instincts. So, Jason, thanks for being here. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, man. It's exciting. I'm excited to talk about some cool things I haven't really talked about before.
Yeah, well, it'd be good to hear your stories and reflections, and there's a lot to talk about. One other label, I'm just curious. It was in your bio that I didn't mention, is that you're a classically trained violinist. Tell us, did you pursue music, or tell us about that real quick?
In a nutshell, my parents put a violin in my hands when I was 2 years
Mm,
old. So that's really, my whole life, it was all about learning music, languages, culture, art, doing plays and orchestras. And my parents were both retired school
mm,
teachers. So as you can imagine, they were teaching my brother and I everything you can think of.
mhm.
So one of the things we learned was how to play the violin, and we went on to perform, even with Liza Minnelli on stage. So it
Wow.
was lots of cool things. Yeah.
That is very cool. We recently had guest Melissa Robinson Weinmiller, who is a professional French hornist
Hmm.
for about 20 years before switching careers. I loved playing timpani and percussion. Like we almost put
Nice.
together an orchestra. You didn't
Yeah.
really do that.
That's true. Strings, horns, and percussion. Yeah. That's great. I love the French horn. That's a beautiful instrument.
And it's also very difficult to play, I think, as
Yeah.
horns go. But all right, so it's kind of good to know a little bit more about the person behind the story. But Jason, let's go ahead and jump in. You know, the different things you've done in your career. What's your favorite mistake?
And when I first saw that this was the topic,
Uh,
my favorite mistake, I wanted to just highlight something. I thought to myself, I'm like, but wait a minute. Not all mistakes are created equal,
right.
right? There are I thought about this a lot because I do bring up to entrepreneurs when I'm trying to help them out, like, these are the things you should avoid,
Mhm,
right? And why should you avoid them? Well, because I made mistakes
mhm,
and I learned from those things. But there are mistakes that you make yourself, right? That
right.
you make the mistake, and those teach you better methods. And you mentioned my book 10 years ago, but I wrote it as an evergreen book that you can do today. It's the same as it was 10 years ago. The methods don't
Mm,
change,
yeah.
right? At all. But then there are situations that you're put in, right? There are
Yeah.
situations that you're put in that I was put into that I guess it puts things outside of your control, and you'd like to avoid those situations next time. So in my opinion, there are two types of mistakes: the ones that you yourself make or you and your team make, and the ones where you did not technically make them, you were put into them. And because you were put into them, you realized, oh, that was a big mistake. And the reason I'm bringing this up is it's very important. There's a story that I've never told. And if you'd like to hear it,
That's why you're here.
it's this is a story that I've never told anybody, not even people close to me, because it's something that really, I want to almost say, traumatized me in some ways. And it's always kind of picking at me in the back of my mind, like that was the moment where I decided things have to go a different way.
Uh,
It was 2010,
mhm,
right? And this is now 15 years ago. It was the beginning of my startup journey, not my entrepreneurial journey, my startup
mm,
journey. I was beginning to build tech
yeah.
startups. I was at the end of releasing my first feature film that had just won film festivals. It was being distributed. I was like, oh, this is great. And running off of that adrenaline and that high of like being this new filmmaker that was doing well, a lot of people asked me what I was going to do next. I always flip flop between, like you said, music, writing, technology, film. I'm kind of flip flopping between them by working on a project in one of those
Mhm.
fields. So naturally, I decided, well, I want to jump into technology again. Because as you can see behind me, I'm a huge tech
Mhm.
nerd. I had the first couple of iPhones, and I realized that apps were starting to become really popular. Facebook was popular. The movie The Social Network was just
Yep.
about to come out, which is a big problem for what I'm going to tell you. And so I met someone through the movie that wanted to work on something with me. He's like, I see you this amazing movie. I see you're good at what you do. What are you doing next? I told him I'm working on a new tech platform. I had this idea for a tech
Mhm.
platform years and years and years ago, but I decided now I'm going to start building it. I don't want to make the story too long, but he decided to join up with
Mhm.
me. I'm technology, he's business, but I'm also business, right? I know what I'm doing, right? But he decided, well, I'll be the CEO, you be the CTO.
Mhm.
So I'm building all this platform, I'm building the platform, but I'm also working on the pitch deck and I'm working on the documentation that we would give to investors and so on and so forth. He didn't know anything about running a startup. He had some money,
Mhm.
which you need in a startup. So his contribution was financial. Okay. His first that and halfway through the social network comes out. We're halfway through building this thing, the social network comes out. He became paranoid. He
Mm.
realized that we need a lawyer. We need a lawyer. We need to create a company, a formal corporation. We need
You were
to
just
have
working on the
documents.
product at that point.
We don't even have a platform
Oh,
working.
okay.
I had like the beginnings of a frame, some demos, some mock-ups, some lots of documentation. I had some things like, here's what we're gonna build.
Right.
We gotta put together a team to like really bring this thing to life. So we don't have anything built yet. It's more just like a concept. It's, wireframes and
Right.
whatnot. He wants to get a lawyer and documentation, and he's adamant, I'm not going to work on this with you until we do that. So I was forced, because I wanted to work on this, I was forced to go with him to see this lawyer. And she wasn't cheap.
Mhm.
We were spending thousands of dollars meeting up with this woman to get information that today you would just ask GPT or whoever and get the information you need in like 5
Yeah.
minutes. We're spending weeks at this office getting documentation and contracts and all this stuff, and we still don't have anything built. So I'm working on this product. I'm building this product. I'm trying to get things done. I'm starting to actually build the platform. I'm starting to actually get people at universities to notice us and come let us pitch to their accelerator programs and things like that. He hasn't done anything yet. He's simply just been putting in money, but he's been forcing me to pay half of the legal fees, even though I'm doing all the
Yeah.
work. So there comes a day, this is the end of the story. There comes a day when I'm frustrated. I tell him he wants me to pay another, I don't know how much money it was, it might have been 1,000, 2,000, $3,000. Remember, this is
Mm.
2010. Okay. I'm in my 30s. I don't have a ton of money. I'm an entrepreneur. I don't have a job. I work full time as an entrepreneur, as a freelance web developer, whatnot. And he asked me to put in more money. I sat there and I said, listen, I can't put in this
Mhm.
money. This lawyer is making me not be able to pay my mortgage. I'm going broke.
Yeah.
And I'm doing all the work. And this is what he said to me that changed everything for me. My favorite
Mhm.
mistake. You think the work you're doing is worth more than my money? And I didn't hesitate not a nanosecond. I said, absolutely yes. If it wasn't for my
Yeah.
work, we would have nothing.
Yeah.
All we have is a pile of contracts from some lawyer
Yeah.
that we spent thousands of dollars on that means nothing without a product. And that day we decided to cut
Mhm.
ties, shut down the company, and part ways. And I decided to myself, I am never making the mistake again of bringing someone on board only because they have money, number
Mhm.
one. Number two, I am never talking to a lawyer again when it comes to a startup until I have a platform that is running, that has users using it, that has some sort of traction. I have a team put together, then I'll form a company, then I'll start getting some legal stuff in place, but I'm not hiring a lawyer. I'll do it through like LegalZoom or some other thing.
Sure.
And so that was the last time that mistake ever happened to
Yeah.
me.
That's a mistake to learn from. And I hear your reflection there of, that's the last time. I mean, that's the type of mistake that you could write about or talk about and somebody could learn from and maybe avoid that mistake. But back to what you were saying earlier, they're still going to find their own mistakes to make that are unique to their situation. We can't avoid all of these mistakes necessarily.
Definitely not.
The CEO, and you said, they watched the movie and they became,
Paranoid.
were they worried about, oh, someone's going to steal our IP? It sounded like he wasn't worried about being beat to market because the lawyer stuff was slowing it down.
I think I mean, as far as I can tell, I mean, this is 15 years ago. I believe what he might have thought was that I was going to build this without him because he saw how fast I was moving
Oh,
and how I was in control. He had no control over anything. He didn't have access to the code. He didn't have access to the pitch decks, really. He didn't have access to anything. And he saw that I was not rogue, but I was very independent. I was very independent and like, I'm getting stuff done. You're not.
mhm,
Because you're not getting stuff done isn't going to stop me from continuing on and try to get this to go. You need to start pushing forward and making connections, talking to investors, finding developers, whatever it is as a CEO, you need to go do that. And since he wasn't, I think he started to get worried that I was going to just take off without him, which is what I ended up doing
yeah.
at the end of the whole thing anyway, just on a different
Yeah, so
concept.
it's been a long time since I've seen the movie, and it's been a while since I've thought about some of the different players in the early days of Facebook. But refresh my memory. Did Mark Zuckerberg cut some people out? Am I
Well,
vaguely
he stole
remembering that?
Facebook from the Tyler from the well, no, it's not that he cut people out. He stole Facebook from the Winklevoss twins.
Twins.
That's the fact, right?
Mhm,
The twins brought the Facebook concept to him. They were paying him to build it. He built his he built it, but he called it Facebook and said, "No, it's not
yeah.
yours." And the reason we know that's true is because they ended up having to settle
Mhm,
for a lot of stock and money that they then sold and bought Bitcoin, and now they're worth billions, and they started the Gemini exchange, and we know that that's how they became so wealthy. It was the Facebook stock they
yeah.
got. So, I mean, why would you get that if it wasn't
Sure.
true?
So I'm being paranoid about saying the wrong thing about somebody who, okay, we're not going to get sued for talking.
No,
Uh,
I mean, there's a movie about it, man,
Yeah, well, was talking about the yeah, I mean, that
and a book.
movie might not be 100% true to life, but it's in line with
Yeah, it's based on a
yeah,
book too. It's based on a book that was written, you know?
yeah. Is there a general lesson or advice? I've heard the phrase, kind of around entrepreneurship, quote unquote, smart money. That's somebody who isn't just writing a check, but has experience, connections, domain knowledge. I see you're nodding. So yeah, tell us about that.
It's 100% true. You can get an investor that gives you $5 million, but then that's all they do, and then you're still left to yourself to scale. Scaling a startup is the most difficult thing to do. We're in the middle of that right now with Vengo, where we're trying to scale this business. It's very difficult. We can get our own customers. We're getting customers every day with ads and social media and blogging and, interviews like this. But to get 1,000 customers,
Mhm.
10,000 customers, 50,000 customers. We need someone that strategically has partnerships at every company, universities, you name it, who can place us automatically in all these portfolio companies they
Yeah.
have.
And
Smart
and that
money.
and that's
That's what
totally
smart money does.
that's totally different than the person being smart. They might be smart for certain investments, a good fit for certain investments compared to others. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you have people like, Peter Thiel and others that have invested in Facebook, for example, Airbnb, PayPal, and all these big companies that they either co-founded or invested in. There's a lot of people who invested in Airbnb and Uber that made a lot of money. So yeah, finding those, Nvidias and
Uh,
Palantirs of the world early on, Tesla, and then selling at the peak, you're a smart
yeah.
investor. But it doesn't mean you're a smart entrepreneur. There's a huge difference. And I would argue, like I've met Mark Cuban before. He's a great guy. He's rich, sold his first company when he was a kid. And how much does he know about the trenches? the
Yeah.
entrepreneurial trenches of really building a small startup. He's got a team of people that does it all for you. Can he himself actually build a startup from scratch these days with no money?
Yeah.
I would argue probably not. Most of these guys are completely detached from
Mm.
reality. They don't know what it takes to truly build a startup in today's market. It's totally different these
Yeah.
days.
But there's an opportunity to partner up with their knowledge of their reality versus, yeah. And
And they're
I
funded.
mean, he doesn't need to sweat and work that hard to do it. So you find that's where he finds people to invest in that
Right.
drive and the ability to do it.
I guess my point in saying that is they don't really understand what we go through, so they're very harsh and they don't
Oh,
invest as much as we would hope they
mhm,
do. Like you would look at our startup and my team, my technology, my platform, my knowledge, my successes, and check, 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 all these boxes getting checked, and still VCs don't
yeah.
invest. So the era of technology, traction, team, revenue, all those things, they don't matter anymore. They just don't matter anymore. They used to matter big time
Uh-huh,
before the pandemic. Now they don't matter anymore. Now it's the era of
uh-huh,
connections. Who do you know? Did you go to Stanford? Did you work at
uh-huh.
Google? Did you sell your last startup to Amazon? Who do you know? And if you know someone or you went to that school, you were MIT and you built this project that got sold to Google, you're going to get funding without a product. Just like a literally just a pitch deck.
And I mean, that's interesting to hear about because, some of the famous Silicon Valley people are always, talking about meritocracy, 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 but not necessarily how it really works.
Not at all. And, my other favorite mistake that preempted all the knowledge of this and leading me to build things to where I am today was after that startup that, I cut ties with, I started saying, okay, well, now I'm going to try a different approach. I'm going to try to find people who do value my expertise. Okay. So I'm going to say what it's the second mistake is still, it's an interesting one, but it's a two-parter. The first part is I still went into it looking for co-founders. And I'm probably biased here, and I'm probably just I might be alone in this, but the first part of the mistake is don't look for co-founders.
But that's
Just don't
common
do it.
advice of like, oh, it's always, the recommendation of like, if you're the tech person, you need a business person or vice versa. But you're saying not all.
I will die on the hill that disagrees with that. I will literally just be on the top of the hill screaming, "Do not do that." Y Combinator and all those other accelerators say you have to have a co-founder. Investors won't invest unless you have a co-founder. And I'm going to say the first part to this mistake is do not look for a co-founder. And here's why. You need to become an expert at whatever it is you're building. Doesn't matter if it's a physical hardware widget, a tech app, a piece of clothing, anything, whatever you're going to build and work on, you need to become an expert, not just in building it, but the business of it, the marketing of it, understanding the industry around it, your competitors, what's new coming out, what are the struggles, where are the failures, where are the successes. You need to know all that stuff because if you ever want to become, say, the CEO of a company, that's what the CEO does. They understand all the facets of the company and they are an expert in many different things and they can run the business. Okay. So by getting co-founder, you're now diverging. You're giving that stuff away to other people and you're no longer an expert. So when you're in the room with a VC or when you're trying to pitch to someone and they ask you, well, what's your tech stack? And what's your go-to market strategy and this, that, and the third. And maybe you don't know the answers because you didn't learn. You're not an expert in all the different pieces of your platform. So you have to build, or at least try to build as much of your product, whatever hardware, software, physical, whatever. You have to try to build as much of the product as you possibly can by yourself.
Mhm,
I don't care how hard that is to
yeah,
do. Learn how to do some basic
mm,
coding. Now you have AI at your fingertips. You can whip up a prototype in 24
mhm,
hours. You have social media is simple to learn how to do some basic marketing, some ads, very easy. write some blogs, become an expert, make a pitch deck. All these things are so easy these days with AI on top of
Yeah.
that. Do that, get as far as you can, and then co-founders will be attracted to
Mhm.
you because now you've shown that you're a domain expert, you have knowledge, you can build things, you are moving ahead with or without them. And do they want to jump on that train or do they want to wait for the next one?
Yeah.
Right. And that's the first part of the
So
mistake.
that's what you're describing is different than two people saying, okay, we are the co-founders and we're standing in front of a blank whiteboard and saying, okay, well, what are we going to do? What you're saying is you got to be down that path. And does that include like being at a point of having your MVP, a minimum viable product, more than a concept at that point?
That is what I
Yeah.
do. I get to the MVP level so that I can show a VP of marketing or a potential VP of marketing, hey, try my platform. What do you think? Maybe it helps, senior citizens. And maybe that VP of marketing just lost their grandparent to the issue that the problem is solving. Oh, if only I would have had this when my grandfather had Alzheimer's or whatever, I would have been able to help him with this, that, and the third.
Mm.
I love this idea. I want to join. They're passionate about it, but they can also try it and
Mm.
see it. And they see the value proposition. They see the core value proposition, right? So you got to build that core value proposition, get someone excited about it, and then they will want to become your co-founder. You also hold so much more leverage at this point. They can't say, give me 50% of
Mhm.
your
Yeah.
company. They can ask for 10%, maybe 20 at most, because you've already done the legwork. You've spent a couple of months building the
Yeah.
MVP. You've gotten the pitch deck. You built a website. You got your social media presence already done. You have several blog posts explaining the industry. You know the numbers, you know the data, you know the competitors, you know everything. They can't ask for
Yeah.
50%. But if you start out co-founders
Hmm.
50-50, that other 50 might not do the 50% of the work. They
Yeah.
might only do 10% of the work, and that's the problem. That's mistake number 2 actually isn't that, but that's we'll say it's mistake number 3 within the three-parter,
Hmm.
is giving away too much equity when finding out the person does no work,
Yeah.
which is what happened with that first company. He didn't do anything. He just put in money.
Yeah.
But here's where the reason I'm telling you all this is that the second part of the mistake is actually that when I broke off and started working on other projects with other people, we made the mistake of building way too much.
Way
So we built
beyond minimum.
we built full-fledged platforms that would rival, at the time, eBay and Craigslist. We were building a reverse engineered, reverse auction platform that lets people say what they wanna buy for a certain price, and sellers would match, say, "Oh, I have that, I'll sell it to you for that price," and then they'd match, and then they can sell and make the transactions on the website. We built this thing, and it actually worked really well, but it was so big. It had so many features. It had so many features that it was almost like, "Well, what do you do? How does it
Mm.
work?" Versus just building that one thing that, would have been a nice little feature to have.
Yeah. Because
And because it was so big, we couldn't market it. We didn't have the funding to market it, number 1. We couldn't get people to use it because it was 2011, 2012. It was just so hard. And so I didn't realize, and also, by the way, my favorite book at that point was there was no good book out. Lean Startup just came out, right? So the Lean Startup comes out after I'm building this behemoth, which I loved. It was called Picklify.
Mhm.
And I read the Lean Startup and it just changed
Yeah.
everything for me.
Yeah. Up
I said, "Oh my god."
up on the shelf over here, and yeah,
Yeah,
great.
that book is up on this shelf here because that
Cool.
book, I immediately realized that startup was a
Mhm.
huge mistake, waste of time, but I learned how to build a really big
Yeah.
platform. So that was the good thing about
Yeah.
it. Needless to say, that one ended. Okay, and the co-founders I had didn't do jack. They didn't do anything. They were just like giving ideas, constantly giving ideas, but none of them were good.
Yeah.
They weren't marketing it, they weren't selling it. I was building this platform. So what did I do? All mistakes aside
Mm.
now, right? We're out of the mistake game. We are now in the clean slate. Jason's going to try this his
Yeah.
way.
Informed by,
In 20
influenced by lean startup concepts, including the MVP.
bingo. So 2010, we know what happened. 2011 and 12, we know what happened. 2013 was the pivotal game-changing year for me where I decided to finally go back to my original
Mm.
idea that I had in 2005, and I started building that by
Yeah.
myself. And guess what happened? I was able to build an MVP and get 10,000 users at
Mhm.
colleges in
Yeah.
2013. And I was able to attract a very talented high school student who wanted to help me. And he joined me not as a
Mhm.
co-founder, just as a
Yep.
developer. And he helped me build a better version of the app, an Android version. And we were able to get 20, 30, 40,000 users. And I was able to attract a VP of marketing who is still with me today, 12 years later, in my current company. She's my VP of marketing today. I was able to get her to join me back then. She's still with me today. It shows you how loyal I am and
Mhm.
how we are. And that startup was able to get into an accelerator in New
Mhm.
York, raise a couple $100,000, get up to 500,000 users, and then, of course, we hit a funding wall in 2015, 16, where we just couldn't raise more money. We tried everything, and we were we had a term sheet and everything. And then 2015, 16, couldn't raise the money. We shut down the company, but I learned everything.
Mm.
I wrote a book about
Yeah.
it. I started, really getting my hands into the tech world. I started working on another movie and yada yada. We can get into the next phase, but
Mhm.
that's
Well,
really where I learned everything.
yeah, the hard fought lessons learned, hopefully become a stepping stone. I mean, it might sound,
Big time.
trite, but I mean that does and can happen. I mean, I think there's a mistake people make related to lean startup where they associate it completely with bootstrapping. I mean, what are your thoughts around when you have these users? And I think part of the idea is not just having the product that's minimally viable, but a business model that also works. Is that something that's more? Are there lessons learned related to thinking about revenue, like users versus paid users and revenue? I'm curious what lessons you learned from that other company that you applied now.
Yeah, and what I find really ironic and almost a bit crazy is that first company that took off, we've never really s strolled away from it. We've still been it's almost like we've been tweaking and fine-tuning and pivoting and adapting from that company, because ever since then, Spinner is a child of that parent.
Mhm.
Spinner is kind of a product of what that should have been or could have been, and your first users, your beta testers, you have to look at them as the best user feedback to help your UI, UX, or user interface, user experience, to help your UI, UX get as good as it can before you release to the
Yeah.
public. So we always launch everything in a beta phase. You have to.
Mhm.
If you do not launch in a beta phase, you just launch to the public and you start marketing it, you're making a big mistake.
Is that because
You have to.
there's probably too many problems, or you've waited too long to get it out there?
I was hired as a consultant to build a behemoth of a platform once in like 2018. This was in
Mhm.
betweens. And I tried to push my methodology on them. I tried to
Yeah.
push my book on them. They didn't want to listen. They did what you just said. They just kept building and building and building and building. And I said, hey, we should have launched a beta like 6 months
Got it.
ago. I kept bringing it up. I kept bringing it up. Eventually, they kicked me out of the company
Yeah.
because it just wasn't going anywhere. And I provided all the documents I had given them. I said, I tried to tell you guys we had to launch a beta. No, we don't need a beta. We need a full. Okay.
Yeah.
The method works if you
Mhm.
follow it. So, core value proposition means one
Yeah.
feature, okay? MVP means a functional platform that people can log into or a product they can hold in their hands and try it, and then it has no other features.
Yeah.
It's just basic. You can show them with, like, mock-ups and documentation, like pitch decks, like, "Here's what it will
Sure.
do. Here's a survey. Which of the 5 features do you want?" next. And if 82% say they want a specific feature next, that's the one you build. Then you push that out. You say, test the feature.
Mhm.
What do you think? Oh, I love the feature, but I wish it could also do
Yeah.
this. Okay, how many people want that? And you just keep doing that over and
Mhm.
over. Iterate, feedback, iterate, feedback. That's a cycle that you just never get out
Yeah.
of.
Well, and part of MVP is something that people are not just willing to pay for conceptually, but they actually give you their credit card number and start paying
Yep.
because there's value. It's not just minimal, it's providing that subset of value as opposed to trying to do everything for every user.
And diving into that is how much are they willing to
Yeah.
spend? Is it 99 cents? Is it 4.99? Is it 9.99? Is it 29? Is it
Mhm.
$500? What are they willing to pay for the
Yeah.
feature? And you need to find that out too. Can you break even, you
Yeah,
know?
because I mean, I think of like, the lean startup world questions and Stephen Blank with his work, the questions of like, can we build it and should we build it? There's lots of things you
Right.
can build that at some point you realize, uh, that's a mistake. Let's shut it down. We shouldn't build it. Let's move on to something else. That's part of the entrepreneur journey, right?
Yep. And one of the things that I've done over the last, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, like I mentioned, everything's kind of been like pivoting and adapting and, iterating off of our first big company, is that we've had to consistently, even with Vengo is now on its like third iteration. The first iteration was not what it is today. It was a consumer product. We pivoted to B2B at some point. We realized that's where we had to be. And now we've completely not pivoted, but we've adapted to a fully automated
Mhm.
platform where you don't have to do anything. It's just automated. And that evolution means that just because you think you have a great product and then you start getting feedback from people and then you start iterating and you start realizing, well, wait a minute, I need to be over there. It doesn't mean you failed. It
Sure.
doesn't mean you made
Mhm.
mistakes. It doesn't mean that you're doing the wrong thing. It just means that you have to be willing to adapt to the
Right.
market. You have to be willing to iterate and maybe even
Mhm.
pivot. Or in the case of what we're doing right this particular moment, that is not even public knowledge really, is releasing a completely vertical product that goes to a different industry. In this case, universities. Now we're targeting universities with our campus pixel product.
Yeah.
That's not, we're not saying Vengo's no good anymore. We're still getting like 50 new customers a week. It's how can we now target this other university industry where they need
Yeah.
help. They're losing staff left and right because of the enrollments coming down. So AI agents can help with
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, and I think we can look at a word like mistake in sort of a non-judgmental way, and say, well, okay, well, that was a mistake. Now let's learn from it and move on and iterate or pivot instead of dwelling on, a mistake doesn't mean it was idiotic. It just means we learned something. Maybe there was an assumption that turned out to be untrue. And, we learned something. I mean, I think of Eric Ries and the build, measure, learn cycle. It doesn't work without the learn, and, if you
Yeah.
you can't assume you're always going to be right. There are going to be you could call them, mistakes or problems or opportunities or whatever word is okay with you, but, I mean, I'm a huge believer of, look, the smartest people in the world make mistakes. Making a mistake doesn't mean you're dumb. We
Right.
all make mistakes, but let's learn from them, and you seem to really embrace that, which is great.
100%. A mistake is a learning process. And like you said, there's so many legends out there saying like build fast, fail fast, hire fast, fire fast. Everything should be fast when it comes to, and it's crazy because like our team that I've put together over the last, several years, we are such a well-oiled machine at this point. And so we're about to launch another app, this consumer app that is going to change the game again for something else. And every time we do this, whether it's the university thing or this consumer product or, a movie I'm working on or anything, I turn a switch on the machine and say, "Hey guys, let's start pushing on this
Yeah,
now." And they just pick it up and that well-oiled machine just starts iterating and pushing out, building, creating, marketing, ads, feedback, and it works every
yeah,
single time. If you follow the methodology
yeah,
and the system that we've built, it
yeah.
works.
Well, that's where I mean, I like to poke at. variations of that phrase, fail early, fail often. I'm like, well, if you fail early and you fail small and you learn and you iterate, like, it shouldn't be a fail often. It should
Right.
keep failing. I mean, yeah, better to fail early because we can adjust as opposed to working, the pre-lean startup stuff that Eric Ries and others talk about of, being in stealth mode for years and building the big
Oof.
secretive ponderous product. There's just so much risk of being wrong as opposed to putting up, I don't know, have you ever done, the approach of just, building a landing page and seeing, could you get traffic to it? Would people express interest? And if not, you move on to another idea.
That's it. That's exactly right. We've done that so many times. It's called A/B
Yeah.
testing. You put up 2 different landing pages or 2 different ads or 10 different ads, which is we're constantly running, like, I think 5 to 10 different ads and just going through them and seeing which one performs best. The ones that don't, you cut
Mhm.
them, you replace them with new ones, and you just keep doing that. It never ends. It's a vicious cycle that never ends. It's constantly testing what works, what brings people
Mhm.
in the door. And, most people just they either don't have the patience for it,
Mhm.
they don't want to do the hard work.
Mhm.
If they have a lot of money, they think throwing money at developers is the way to do it and just keep building, 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 and then eventually they launch and no one uses it, and they wonder why. They think it's the best thing ever
Yeah.
built, and I'm like, "You didn't launch an
Yeah.
MVP. I told you."
Good.
Like, I told you to launch an MVP. So, yeah, it's you can't force people to do things. They have to learn on their own, and usually they're learning a very expensive mistake.
Yeah. Hey, Jason, I want to ask you about Spinner. Tell us a little bit about that. It's described as a video-based friendship app. It sounds like it's more about making friends as opposed to staying connected with friends you already have. Tell tell us about that.
So the big app that I had built in 2013 is called Instamore. It was a video dating app. So I was in the dating
Mhm.
space for a while. It was ripe for disruption, and we like I said, we did pretty well. But investors don't like investing in dating apps.
Yeah.
They just and even now it's even worse. It's just gotten down they're all owned by IAC, the match company and everything. So the pandemic came and I realized that people were hurting just for
Mhm.
friends, not dating. And the US Surgeon General declared a nationwide
Mhm.
emergency, the loneliness
Mhm.
epidemic. So really, this is serious stuff. So I figured I built this really great it's okay. So if I step back a minute, I had built this version of Instamore called Instamore Discovery in like
Mhm.
2017. And it was just a version of it that wasn't really dating. It was meant to discover other people based on your interests and your hobbies. So I was like, okay, I like this idea. But of course, once again, I didn't have funding and I didn't have enough people to help me work on it. If you don't have funding for marketing, you're just dead in the water. It's so hard to get out there these days. So in 2020, the pandemic comes and one of my business partners who I've been working with for a long time, he's an angel investor, said, "Hey, what did we, because he had originally invested in Instamore. Why don't we do something with it now? Everyone's stuck at home." Like, yeah, yeah, sure. We spent, I think, 2 months doing some heavy marketing just to see what the waters were like. They were choppy. The waters were choppy, and we realized that dating was
Mm.
dead. It just was. It was just a dead market. But friendship was
Mm.
untapped, completely overlooked. Nobody's looking for friendship. They're all doing social networks, which are not friendship. Social networks are showing off, acting like an idiot, or for like a Facebook where your parents and your
Yeah.
cousins and your friends and your teachers are on there, you're already friends with all of them.
Yeah.
How do you meet new people based on hobbies and interests? So I already had like the fundamental kind of technology behind what I needed. I just had to rebuild a separate version of it that was focused on meeting new people based on hobbies and interests, but making it 100% video. Because the biggest gripe with people is
Yeah.
trolls,
Right.
bots, scammers, not being real. So Spinner is all about being authentic. It's about being your true self. It's about talking to people based on your hobbies and your interests. We built something that was an amalgamation of all of the things we love about the internet, but removing all of the things we hate about the internet. So we love AOL chat rooms. Okay, so we made private chat rooms. We loved MySpace, where you could kind of show off your personality. Your profile is all about showing off your personality. We don't like influencers, ads, trolls, scammers. So our AI detects and removes up to 800 words not allowed on the platform.
Mhm.
We have moderation. Photos and videos will not be posted if they have any offensive content of any kind. We also have human moderators that kind of just in case. But we found that people seem to love the fact that now they can talk about sports or movies or music or form their own little group, their squads for their band or their art. And the people that join can talk about it and share videos and photos and voice messages and gifs. And we had built AI in it to help people navigate, have conversations, learn. And we ended up getting somewhere around like 30,000 users in the first year, which okay, this is people like this. This is working. We tried to raise money, and investors, as usual, want to see 1 million users or $1 million in revenue before they invest. And that's a fact.
Uh-huh.
So we're like, oh, what do we do here? We got 30,000 users. The colleges love it. It's the best version of, there's no better social app in existence to date. You can check and try to find one, you will not. And that's also a fact when you look at it, and the people that use it love it. And we decided, well, everyone loves the AI aspect. This is 2022 before ChatGPT comes out. We had this AI in the app. ChatGPT comes out. I'm like, holy crap. I was one of the beta testers for ChatGPT. I immediately tweaked the one in the app, put it in there. It just got even better. People were like, oh my God, how can we use this ourselves? Like without Spinner, light bulb, Vengo AI was born.
Yeah.
But we realized it wasn't meant to be a consumer app, like I
Mm.
mentioned. The business owners that we had on our on Spinner, because we have a couple business owners that are trying to get people to join their community to share their business stuff, whether it's art, photography, music, etc. Said, I would put this on my website to talk to people, B2B.
Yeah.
And that's where Vengo is today. So Spinner is still live. It is still, we don't market it. We don't put any money into it. It organically grows on its own. A couple hundred users per month we get
Yeah.
for nothing just by putting out some social media content. And it's going to just continue to grow on its own and people love it.
Mhm.
If we know that if a celebrity used it one day and tweeted it, then boom, it would
Yeah.
blow up. Or if a VC decided to give us money, we could blow it up. We know it would be the most popular app in the world because there are no ads, no influencers, no trolls, no scammers. You can't do anything on there at all that you can do on the Twitters and the Facebooks and the TikToks and the Instagrams of the world. You just can't do it. It doesn't
But
exist on the app. We don't allow it.
yeah. So is the business model that people pay to use the app? There's that expression of, if you're not paying for Facebook or X or whatever, then you're the product if you're not paying for it.
We decided, and obviously it's a tough call, but we decided to just make it a free
Yeah.
app. And of course, as we mentioned, or as I mentioned, VCs always have the one or the other. It's the million users
Mhm.
or the million in revenue. You could have 10,000 users and have $1 million in revenue if they're paying $100 a week per, whatever. But we were going with the let's go for the
Yeah.
users because we know if a social platform can get network
Mhm.
effect and gain, critical mass, then investors will pour in because they're like, well, that's the new one. That's the new hype. You better jump
Yeah.
on. But we couldn't get that many people to join. We tried. It's hard without funding
Mhm.
to pay for more ad. Our ad budget was so low, we couldn't do it. Once you get to 1 million users, we had a whole, string of monetization ready to go that we can do that doesn't have to do with ads. The way we were going to do it was very strategic. It was very tasteful. It was going to work really well, unlocking new features, unlocking, the amount of times you can use certain features, get premium placement, all sorts of different things, unlock better AI, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So You can always upsell and, like, unlock, but you give the core product for free, so no one complains. But if you wanna be a super user and you wanna do these things, you wanna unlock more squads, you have a soccer one and a music one, now you want a movie one, well, you gotta unlock that. If you wanna save more videos, you need to unlock that, da 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 da. We had the plan, we just haven't been able to build that plan because without funding, what's the point?
Yeah.
You can keep building more theme parks in Disney World, but if no one's coming, what's the point?
Right. Well, Jason, I want to thank you so much for sharing a lot of mistake stories, a lot of lessons learned, and iteration in your career and businesses and entrepreneurship journey. So, again, our guest today has been Jason Sherman. Look for links in the show notes to his website, links to Spinner. I was on the Spinner website. There's a link there to Vengo, and make sure there's links to all of this and the book in the show notes. So it's been really, really great to meet you, and thank you for being a guest on My Favorite Mistake.
Yeah, man, it was my pleasure, it was a lot of fun.